General Marcus Valerius had conquered 12 nations, crushed countless armies, and never once felt the sting of defeat. His armor bore the scratches of 1,000 battles, his reputation the weight of uncounted victories. They called him the Iron Fist, the man who showed no mercy, who believed weakness was humanity's greatest sin. On a cold autumn morning in a conquered village, he would learn that strength comes in forms he never imagined. The village square was silent except for the wind. General Valerius stood before his troops, inspecting the line of prisoners who had dared resist his occupation. Among them was a young woman named Elena, barely 20 years old, her clothes torn and dirty, her frame so thin she seemed to sway with each gust of wind. She had been caught distributing food to families whose homes had been burned. The general saw her as he saw all resistance, as an insect to be crushed beneath his boot. What happened next would shatter everything he believed about power. Elena stood with her head down, her hands bound, her body trembling not just from fear but from a disease that had weakened her since childhood. The other villagers had tried to protect her, to hide her, but she had insisted on helping those who suffered more than she did. The general approached her, his shadow falling across her like a dark prophecy. He raised his hand, and before anyone could speak, he struck her across the face with such force that she fell to the ground. The crowd gasped. His soldiers stood motionless. And then, in the span of 5 heartbeats, everything changed. Elena lifted her head, blood trickling from her lip, and she looked directly into the general's eyes. She did not curse him. She did not cry. Instead, she whispered words that would haunt him forever. "I forgive you," she said, "because you are already suffering more than I ever could." The general laughed. A harsh sound that echoed off the stone buildings. He raised his hand to strike her again, but then something impossible happened. His vision blurred. His chest tightened. The world seemed to tilt beneath his feet. The general felt his knees, clutching his chest, gasping for air. His soldiers rushed forward, but he waved them away with a trembling hand. It was not a heart attack, not poison, not any weapon known to war. It was something far more powerful. In Elena's eyes, he had seen a reflection of himself, not as the conquering hero he believed himself to be, but as the terrified child he had once been. 50 years of buried memories crashed over him like a wave. He remembered his own village, burned by invaders. He remembered his mother, struck down while protecting him. He remembered the moment he decided that strength meant never feeling that helpless again. The villagers watched in stunned silence as their oppressor wept like a child. The Iron Feist, the man who had never shown emotion, sobbed openly in the dirt. His soldiers did not know whether to help him or look away. Elena, despite her pain, despite her weakness, slowly stood and approached him. Her bound hands reached out and touched his shoulder. "You became what you feared," she said softly. "You became the monster because you were afraid of being the victim. But strength is not the absence of weakness. Strength is choosing kindness when cruelty would be easier." The general looked up at her, his face streaked with tears and dust. "Why?" he gasped. "Why do you show me mercy?" "I have destroyed everything. I have taken everything." Elena smiled, a sad, knowing smile that held generations of wisdom. "Because someone showed mercy to me once when I was dying of hunger. A soldier, one of yours, gave me his ration when no one was looking. He told me that one act of kindness could change the world. I see that soldier in you, buried deep beneath all this armor and anger." Something broke inside Marcus Valerius in that moment. Not his pride, not his reputation, but the iron cage he had built around his heart. He ordered his soldiers to release all the prisoners. He commanded his army to distribute their supplies to the village. His officers protested, calling him weak, calling him mad. Some even spoke of mutiny. But the general, for the first time in decades, did not care what others thought of his strength. He had discovered something more valuable than conquest. In the weeks that followed, the general dismantled his occupation. He sent letters to the capital, resigning his commission, confessing his crimes, accepting whatever judgment awaited him. Elena's health worsened, her body finally succumbing to the disease that had plagued her for years. The general stayed by her bedside, bringing her water, reading to her, learning what true courage looked like. On her final day, She squeezed his hand and whispered, "You found your way back. That is all that matters." After Elena died, the general did not return to his former life. He spent his remaining years in the village, helping rebuild what he had destroyed, learning the names of those he had once seen as mere obstacles. The villagers never fully forgave him, and he never asked them to, but they allowed him to try, to work, to change. Some nights, he would stand where he had struck Elena, remembering the moment his entire world shifted. The weak girl he had dismissed had possessed a strength he could never match with armies or weapons. She had wielded the most powerful force in existence. The courage to forgive, the wisdom to see beyond anger, and the grace to offer redemption to those who least deserved it. In 5 seconds, she had conquered the not with violence, but with the quiet, unshakable power of compassion. And the general, who had spent his life proving his strength, learned that the strongest thing a person can do is admit they were wrong, and then spend every remaining day trying to be better.